Hey, and welcome to Soundcheck by Support Act. My name is Luke, and I'm the Industry Relations Manager for Support Act. And today I'm joined by Ash Grunwald. Thanks for joining me, Ash.
Thanks, brother. Nice to see you.
It's really good to have you, man. And before we go any further, I want to let anyone tuning in today to know if you're doing it tough, that Support Act offers a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week wellbeing helpline, the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline, which you can call on 1-800-959-500. That service is available to all people who work in the arts and is supported by the Australian government through the Office for the Arts. Also, Support Act is currently administering the COVID-19 Crisis Relief Grant for people who work in music and are finding it hard to make ends meet at the moment. If you want to find out more about that Crisis Relief Grant, make sure you visit supportact.org.au to find out more information. So, Ash, thanks for joining us. Yeah, go on the website. That's right.
Yeah, I'll be right on there.
Thanks again. I've given that spiel a few times. Hope it's all in there.
It is needed.
Thanks again for joining us, Ash. So, where are you right now?
I'm in sunny. I always say sunny, no matter where I am. But it's either ironic or literal. But yeah, it is sunny in northern New South Wales at my home.
Yeah, beautiful.
So
do
you
want to trade places? I'm in Footscray in Melbourne. Probably.
My parents were up visiting from North Melbourne, actually.
Oh, really? I'm sure they're very happy.
Yeah, they've stayed while all the craziness has gone down. So
yeah. Well, we wanted to have you on today as a guest on Soundcheck because you've just had such a fantastic career over quite a long time. I remember the first time I came across you was 2001 at the Village Festival in Yeppoon, Queensland, where I was a young local musician playing my first festival, and you were the headliner. And that's almost 20 years ago. So I'm sure there's a lot of people tuning in today whose careers are just starting out who want to hear from someone like you. And maybe we'll start off having to talk about what COVID was like for you when it kicked in, and how you kind of first reacted.
Well, I have let me give the story a run up.
Go on.
Having had a 20-year career, I probably about 2 or 3 years ago, I really decided, like, my career was cruising and almost in that a little, I shouldn't say this, but because it's sort of almost bad language, but it's kind of true. It was a bit doldrumy. I was still doing good gigs and getting paid good money, but I was going over to Bali, living there, and just sort of cherry picking the best out of the way gigs, and that were good payers, and not really progressing my career that much at that stage.
I think your definition of doldrums and mine might be quite different.
And that's human nature, isn't it? To just start with.
It's all relative.
I guess what I was saying was I had wondered whether I had my biggest successes, and whether my my best days are behind me, young fella, that kind of thing, and slipping off into heritage. And it's really cool, when you slip off into heritage world, play good wineries and good things, and it's cool.
Yeah.
But then for some reason I decided to try and I wasn't happy with that, and to try and turn it around and dare to aspire for things in that way that you might naturally do at the start of your career, and try and really get some stuff happening. And that involved a lot of mental preparation and doing a whole lot of different things. So that's the backtrack to say this part of the story, that it worked. And
it worked. Good.
In Europe, which I'd sort of gone to Europe for my whole career off and on, and I would play sporadic festivals, but I didn't really manage to ever join the dots for a consistent, long touring map that involves multiple countries that I could keep coming back to. But I had started to get that happening, which was really cool. And so I was doing a really good tour of Spain, and then going on to a tour of France, which I haven't played in France for a while, but I had a good agent there, and management, and was looking at doing a record thing. So all of this is just, and then we had also people from Holland and a few other places coming down to a few shows. So it was just finally, I feel like my career, even though I have had a good career and I'm very thankful for it, but definitely I've had a lot of times when a lot of doors just seem to be continually shut of certain levels of things. And I just felt like they were opening, and it was like a fairy book like tale, just because I had been trying that. Like, I'm turning 44 soon. So like, I'd been
beautiful for 44, Ash.
Oh, thank you. So when I first put on that, put it on, I was going like that. Yeah, it just felt like, oh wow, you know, it feels good when you're in your 40s and you try and get something happening in a different way and it works. You know, you're like, oh, you really feel like stoked. Well, so it was a bit of a blow to when the COVID thing happened. I really didn't want it sort of to be happening. So I hung on in Spain. I think we were the last band to be touring Spain. Right. We just kept touring until it really came to a head, and I got up one morning and it was like looking at the news and this, that, and the other thing. It was like, okay, fuck it. Let's get out of here. And my rhythm section, my drummer and bass player were from Holland, and I was like, okay, you guys go back the normal way. I'm flying out of here, which was Bilbao, straight to Singapore. Oh no, actually straight via Amsterdam and out. And then I got my flight and I was getting out, and it looked like they were going to get stuck too. So then I was like, oh, wow. Okay, boys, look for a flight. I'll pay you guys to get out too. I couldn't just leave them.
Particularly in Spain, the world would have been just felt a little bit like it was closing down around you, I imagine.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy. And then like on the way to the airport, they declared a state of emergency, which we're getting more used to that these days. But just, you know, at the start of COVID, that felt like a Hollywood movie. And yeah, I hope I'm going to get out. And then, you know, I hope it's all right in Singapore. And I hope I get through. But anyway, I got through, got back here. And then it was like, okay, well, I've got big plans for Blues Fest, and we're going to record a live album and this and that. Oh, no, that's cancelled. And then I took the news really well when my agent was saying, geez, man, actually, it looks like we're not going to be gigging for 6 months. And I took that news beautifully because I didn't really actually believe it was true.
Yeah.
And then it all collapsed around me, you know, and like many people, you know, when you're a bit older, like we own our own home and stuff like that. And, you know, it's principally, you know, we need that income or we're going to be handing the keys into the bank. And my wife has a good company called Earth Bottles that does the reusable water bottles and different things. We think, oh, that's cool, but all the shops are closed. So then we've got, you know, that thing suffering, and my career is actually illegal for me to earn money. So it was pretty hefty. And then so people could see I was putting these things on social media, these attempted inspirational speeches to people about what we could do, because it was that feeling. It was so new and so heavy, and people were appreciating it and thanking me for it, but also they could see noticeably that I was shaken up at the time. And then once things and my advice then was the advice I was trying to take for myself, is like not wish for it to be different than it is, because it is that way, and not put all of your power onto an external event. That you're hoping that it does this, and then if it doesn't, you're in a bad way. Putting all of the emphasis of your hoping for yourself to be able to deal with whatever comes your way well, and, you know, putting that emphasis on the things that you can change. So then, you know, we got chooks. We started planting fruit trees a couple of years too late, and prepared for Armageddon. And it didn't really work out to be that bad, but it just felt good to do something that you felt like you could do.
That's really good advice, Ash. That stuff about like trying to control the things you can control. You know, we've had a few mental health professionals on the show who have said exactly what you just said. You know, like there's no point trying to, you know, to control something that's completely out of your sphere of influence, you know, which is like a global pandemic. And who would have ever expected we'd be in this moment? So things like gardening or, you know, doing projects around the house is probably about as much control as you can exert over your life at the moment. Maybe we take it back a little bit and looking at your career, people, success is such a relative thing in the music industry as well. So one person would look at you and go, you've had a really fantastic, successful career, but I'm sure in yourself, there's things that you go, I wish I had done that differently, or maybe I wish I'd reached this other level. Do you feel comfortable to take us through some of the challenges you've had, before COVID that have really challenged you to change your practice and like how you've overcome that?
Oh, massively. I went
Not all day.
ringer before COVID. Like I was saying, that lead up, that was the good bit,
Yeah.
Where it had started to turn around. But, I hit a bit of a crisis point. Like I say, and like you say, it is relative. And I've always had, in the background, I've always said, I'm so lucky. I never expected anything that happened in my career. Mm. But, so I didn't really start out as this heavy aspirer. My aspiration was to not work a day job and to get paid to play my music, and that's all. And then, because I was a blues player, like how much does a blues player in Australia ever expect for their career? Like it was so far from, you would never be able
with that, Ash, 100%.
Yeah.
No one goes into the rootsy genres thinking that they're going to make mainstream money, like.
No. And really, well, yeah. I was going to say in particular blues, but then again, when I first started coming out of the late 90s, there was the end of that culture of mass residencies, especially in Melbourne. There was lots of residencies. Musicians would live in the inner city and all sorts of places and just play different residencies around town and make a living that way. It was really cool. Yeah. So my ambition was to play as much as you could, but I never expected that roots thing to come along. And then that just went, boom.
Mm. So you're talking like the Xaviers, the Jack Johnsons, that whole era where roots music had its moment, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and when it had its moment, it was probably the height of it was probably, it was calming down towards the end of 2000, like the end of that first decade of the 2000s, but it really started at close to the start of the decade.
Yeah.
So almost a decade. So that was really cool. So I didn't expect that. That was just a bonus.
Yeah.
So I'd had more success than I ever planned on, but still, human nature. I got to one level when my numbers started to go worse. I'm just doing an interview. Sorry.
Oh, good.
When my numbers started to go worse, that even though I'd felt lucky my whole career, it still hurt.
Of course.
To go back into rooms that, I'd pulled, 5 times more people or something, it was really tough. And like I say, I'd been preparing for that day for a long time and thinking, oh, I'd be satisfied and, whatever after that point. But it still was very hard on the ego.
Yep.
And
I don't think a lot of people who access, because Support Act exists for people who work professionally in music, and there's so many people who aspire to that, to be able to be classified as someone who works professionally in music, And I think what I hear a lot from people who have success is that in the industry, you have that success and then you get held to this high standard and your own personal standard going, oh, well, that's where I've gotten to and I want to just keep going with that. But because of the nature of the business, it's not always that way. And it's a hard thing for lots of people to cope with. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's there's a million ways to look at it like that make you feel better. Like, why should you stay at the same level? Or I stayed at the same level for much longer than I thought I would. And that level was more than I ever expected, but still it's hard to play when it's hard when you actually have to play the shows. It's easy in theory to go, well, yeah, I've got a few less numbers now, whatever. Or I've got a lot less numbers now, whatever. That's cool. I'm still appreciate everything. But when you have to turn up and play that show and you have way less people, it can be difficult.
How do you mentally prepare yourself for that?
Well, so what I did was I did manage to flip that whole thing. And a big part of it was focusing really hard on my craft and becoming more of a purist, and have developed strong ambitions for my playing level. So once again, getting back to an internal thing, like the numbers that come through the door is an external thing that is a lot harder to control than my quality of my playing, you know, like, so I actually started trying to, actually, Danny, my wife, really, I had a real turning point when she was encouraging me. This wasn't external. She was going, now let's try and manifest something here. Let's try and imagine filling the... I imagine
that she's just off camera at the moment, Ash, by the way.
Come back from something.
I feel like you're looking directly at her whilst you're saying this, which makes it even more romantic.
Did you hear that, Dad, what I was saying?
Sorry, go
on. So we went a bit woo-woo there, which trying to manifest things. This is a bit of an external, but I'll get to the thing. It's like, imagine filling the Forum. And at the time, that was so absurd. It probably might be a little bit absurd now still, but it was very absurd at the time. And I was like, I just can't. It's just ridiculous. It's bullshit. And then I thought, well, if I had to imagine it, okay, I'll try and imagine it. And then I was thinking, okay, at my age, being a blues player, okay, how could I imagine that coming true? And it was like, okay, there's a bit of a market for those American, like mainly from America, those guitar shredders that come through, like Joe Bonamassa and stuff. They pull 2,000 people and stuff, you know, like that. So then I imagined that and I thought, okay, I've got it. I'm going to try and, I thought as a thought experiment, if I was like a freakazoid of a guitarist, not just like guitarist who's okay, pretty good, get by, you know. Yeah. But if I was a jaw-dropping guitarist, would it be easier? Would my career be easier? Like, would it go better? And I was, yes, of course. You know, and there's a market for that, you know, as you get older. So it made me take action. Visualizing that thing made me take a specific action where I felt like I was working at the goal. Yep. Rather than just wishing for it to be different. So then I started to do that. And, you know, fast forward it's probably almost 3 years ago now, but like I had that Europe career stuff, but also due to COVID, this stuff was cancelled. But like I did an album with Josh Teskey that's going to be coming out. We're going to be on the Sound on the ABC. Two
epic voices on one record.
Yeah, we're going to be on the Sound.
Who wins, Ash? Who wins? That's what I want to know. Who was the winner?
The winner, in my view. And we were booked to play, I think it might be called, this could be wrong, but maybe the State Theatre in Melbourne, but it holds about 1,200 people.
Nice.
So we were booked to be playing that, I think, in March. And, you know, the Teskey brothers probably sold about 12,000 tickets last year for their shows. And then they've since had a #1 album. So there's every chance that we probably would have sold that gig out. Or maybe sold another one. Who knows? I'm just speculating. But I guess what I'm saying is, from that outlandish manifestation attempt 3 years ago, there are some good results that I'm quite happy with them. And, you know, like I said, I just did something on the weekend, my bit. Josh is in Melbourne. I was actually in Queensland when I was doing this. But we're doing one of our first song will be announced on The Sound, which is that good show that they have on the ABC.
Yep.
You know, as I said, the Teskey brothers, just their live album was #1. So that's like such a better position than 3 years ago when I was laying down on a yoga mat making that.
No, that's incredible. Like, we've had the Teskey brothers doing some work with Support Act, namely Brendan, the bass player, and Jeremy, their manager, having some involvement with us, talking about mental health and whatnot. And you know, like what a great resurgence of that genre as well. And obviously, I saw some of the social media content you were doing with Josh, and you know, really nailing that stuff at that time too, which was cool. But I can also, just if I can be indulgent for a moment, that visualization thing, like here I am, I'm 37, and I kind of thought that I had tried hard in my career as a singer-songwriter and thought, well, I've had, you know, some success. You know, I got on the menu screen of the official AFL video game. That was probably like the peak of my career. But I did that same thing. I just decided, I'm like, what do I want to do? I want to be playing bigger festivals. I want to have a huge band. I want to do something which is exactly the music that I've always wanted to play and not worry about what anybody else wants me to do anymore. And I can say, and that's my advice, just to back up what you've said, is I had more success than I ever had in my career, you know, and I had a good career. And I played music professionally for a long time. And so, yeah, I'm well and truly behind the visualization thing. It definitely gets you further, I reckon.
And we were just, my wife and I, we were just, another COVID thing, we were just studying some stuff on NLP. We started doing a little course on that. So just today we were...
Neuro-linguistic programming for anyone who's playing at home.
Yeah. And so, and it was saying like, one of the things with all the different techniques is they say, act as if this is true. And, you know, and act as if your life, the results of your life are your own doing. And it's not because of, if you nerd out and try and look for the exceptions to that, oh, well, you know, a truck ran me over and, you know, or this bad thing happened. It's not about that. You know, like you act as if it is, as a technique. And I think that's where people, if you get all scientific reductionisty about it and say, this is bullshit, that's bullshit. That's what I did, you know, back in the day when I saw The Secret. I'm like, what is this cheesy shit? You know, and I reduced it, but then again, I only punished myself really because I got to say, that's, you know, that's stupid, or that's not for me. It's too cheesy. And yes, that is a bit cheesy. But it's not about that. It's like using techniques that help you with your life, and the technique of believing that the things that you want to bring into existence for yourself are possible, and that you are in your best mental state when you're working towards achieving those things, being happy that they are going to, already feeling. There's another thing, acting as if you're already there. You're not acting as if you're already there because you're just stupid and you think, you know, you're deluding yourself. You're acting because when you get in that state, that helps you to do the
absolute best of your ability.
Yeah, to work, whistle while you work in a way, and I'm going to practice this thing. I'm going to send that email. I'm going to follow up that lead. And yeah, so, you know, these things are little hacks and techniques that you can use, and they're all about taking responsibility for where you're at and making the most of it. And I think a lot of unhappiness actually comes from not doing the reverse of that, which I guess the layman person's term for that would be making excuses and blaming the external world for your mental state, you know. And we can't make ourselves, like, you can try and we can't guarantee success in the external world, but you can take responsibility for the way that you feel about the level of success that you've got. And also, I've interviewed so many successful people, and especially in music, and had so many friends that have played massive stadiums and been on top of it all, and no one ever reports being happier at that time.
Yeah, it's true.
And we're doing it for happiness.
That goes back to my point before about that perception of success, and like, you know, like you reach a level of success and then there's a certain amount of, you know, unhappiness about maybe not going to the next level or whatever it might be. I'm not saying that's you, but some people would be like,
no, that is.
But then I've spoken to people in the industry who've been around for 30 years and have had heaps of success, who still, you know, it doesn't change their perception of the world, so to speak. You know, they still have the challenges of maintaining a career just as anyone else does. And that's why I think, you know, for people who are tuning in and have made it this far, that anywhere from like an independent artist who's trying to have a crack, you can see that part of it is the perspiration as well as the inspiration and having that mindset. And that's particularly relevant again now during COVID and how we deal with this tough time. You know, it's about finding, you know, focusing on things that you can control and really trying to use that as your springboard. Maybe we can manifest destiny our way out of COVID, Ash. I mean, that would be amazing. I mean, I'm just going to start imagining that we're not in stage 4 lockdowns in Melbourne, and maybe we won't be anymore. Who knows? Hey,
that's the bit where I like, just that bit that you said jokingly, like that's the bit that I don't like about the manifesty thing.
That's where it finishes up. Yeah.
It's an external, like, or like, I'll just imagine heaps of money and somebody will just come dump a big thing of money. It's more like, I reckon it's more as like using visualization as a bridge.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, anyway, I'm being a nerd by spelling it out.
You're totally right. And yeah, I took it to a funny place. You were making a serious point, and I'm sorry for that. Hey, before I let you go back and enjoy that beautiful northern New South Wales sunshine, which I can see behind you, a couple of things about our industry. The Support Act is all about trying to create a healthier industry for people who work in music. And how do you think things have changed since you started touring in Australia to now, about, you know, how you can maintain a healthy lifestyle as a professional, an artist in the music industry? And also, what are some of the things that you would see changed about how the industry operates to make sure that people's mental health is kind of prioritized when it comes to, you know, success or, you know, trying to seek a bigger audience?
Well, the biggest point I'd make, which would be a reiteration, is that I think it's more giving people tools like what we're trying to do in this discussion. Those would make the biggest changes. So it wouldn't be externals that the industry is doing or this or that. It would be more changes in the person in question, the musician, with their mental state. You know, it's like giving the tools and bringing it back to taking responsibility for your own mental state. Because I've seen, you know, like this music industry is very hard on your mental state for sure. And I've seen a lot of people lose it. Some people commit suicide, you know, like a whole lot of things, especially crew.
Yeah.
You know, really. But people have to watch their culture. Yeah. What I did notice, actually, somebody who was on the road, I did find out it might have been a drug-related accident or something, but he did end up, young guy committing suicide. But that guy himself, like, and some of these were crew that I used that came. They toured with me a lot, but they came from more of a younger kind of scene that was more heavy music or whatever. But they were in a really negative. I used to always comment and tease them about it, but they'd turn up and go, "This joint's fucked," and you know, everything was. So it's funny. Their mindset was always looking for the negative, and yeah. So I think
if the stereotype of road crew is somehow connected to the fact that they are asked to work under what are often ridiculous time pressures with gear that they sometimes isn't working or not familiar with. There's this stereotype of the grumpy sound guy, you know, and now I'm starting to understand, like, the rate of suicide amongst road crew is 5 times higher than the national average. And it's a real issue. Yeah. Now I'm starting to understand, like, the pressures, you know, that they deal with day to day, particularly on a tour that's, you know, packing down and setting up the next day at another location somewhere else. Their hours are outrageous, and you know, it's a hard industry.
It is hard, and those things you say are true, those externals. But one thing, there's a culture there. I think the culture has to be worked on. Like the culture, if, like, you know, chefs are always abusing people. And then if people get into that grumpy mindset, it's mindset, you know, you've probably gathered how much I think mindset is important. Yeah. And also, I'm going to chuck in a plug if it's all right.
Go.
Because I wrote a book about this, about it, which is called Surf by Day, Jam by Night, where I interviewed a lot of pro surfers like Kelly Slater and Steph Gilmore, and then I interviewed Jack Johnson and Matt McHugh from the Beautiful Girls, a lot of musicians and a lot of pro surfers, but we were talking about these kind of things.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel strongly that mindset is such a massive part of it. And I think, you know, there are structural things that could change and external things, but if we could promote, have discussions about mindset and the importance of it more and more, and if that sort of little meme of mindset caught on like a virus and went through not so much the actual artist, but that's more the crew. And like, because some crew are completely different, and there are, like I said, there are structural things that make that job very hard, but like that mindset stuff as well would help a lot, because I think it does come back to that in the end, because nobody can change the way somebody else thinks or experiences life. But yeah, once you get gigging, it is quite a slog, and it can be hard on the ego, and it can actually be, you have to actually enjoy this kind of sort of isolated life where you see the audience and it's like rah rah rah, and then you go back and you're alone again, and then come back to the audience, rah rah rah, you're really out there, and you say thank you, sign. I just did 4 gigs in a row up at Miami Marquetta, and it was super fun, and it was like that too, but I kind of like that monastic existence where I go back and I'm by myself again. But you have to, like, because it can be lonely, and I can see how
a long time.
Yeah, imagine how those ultra famous people, where they sort of need to distance themselves from everyone, imagine how they feel. They probably feel very lonely.
Yeah, once again, it's the perceptions of success. You know, they probably would wish for more social connectivity. Ash, thanks so much for your time today, man. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on for this conversation. And for anyone who's doing it tough right now, or any of those things resonate with you that we've spoken about today, make sure you call the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline on 1-800-959-500, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, staffed by mental health practitioners who are really aware of what it takes to work in the music industry and the arts sector in general. Also, if you are a professional in the music industry, whether you're an artist, a crew member, or a music worker, please go to our website, supportact.org.au, to find out more information about the COVID-19 Crisis Relief Fund and how you can receive a grant to get through these tough times. Ash Grunwald, thanks for your time, man.
Thanks, brother.